We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights and new styles and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, January 9th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Jessica Dainha.
Happy Thursday, everyone.
Happy Thursday.
Yay.
And Kang Won-ju.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to begin with our keyword news. Our keyword news for this Thursday is cold snap. The Korea Meteorological Administration issued a citywide cold snap warning for Seoul on Wednesday evening. This warning is issued when daytime lows are expected to drop below minus 12 degrees Celsius for at least 2 consecutive days. And today, temperatures across much of South Korea are expected to stay below zero all day. So I want to ask our panelists, how was the weather on your way to the studio this morning? And we're seeing a rise in cold and flu cases here in Korea. So what are some practical tips on staying warm and healthy amid this cold spell?
Yeah, I was freezing on my way to the studio today. My friends call me 얼죽코 because
what does that mean?
I always wear coats instead of wearing the padded jackets.
No matter how freezing the weather
No
is.
matter how freezing it is. But this winter, including today, is so cold, right? So I just threw out my principle of 얼죽코. I wore padded jacket today. But anyways, I think the best way to stay warm is wearing as many layers as possible under padded jackets, like sweaters, cardigans, zip-ups, hoodies, anything you have, just wear it. And another tip is to use a hand warmer right here.
Yes.
Hand warmer. I always have one in my pocket, and I also have a spare one in my bag. So a tip for using this hand warmer is to shake it as fast as you can, and about 10 minutes before you leave your place, and throw it into your jacket pocket. It will save your life.
Right, so bundle up and using a hand warmer. So very practical tips from Munju.
Yeah.
Now to you, Cheska.
Yes.
What about you?
I also have some very practical tips, especially when it gets this cold. A lot of the indoors really vamp up on the heaters.
Right.
So it becomes extremely dry. And I've seen a lot of people catch flu because of the dryness. So make sure that you carry a tumbler with a lot of liquid. Tea would be great. If
Stay
you
hydrated.
Stay hydrated with a lot of vitamin C. But also another thing is, in addition to the health concerns, I also remember seeing a lot of unforeseen accidents that happened last year.
Especially on the roads.
Exactly. So if you're a commuter, make sure that you become extra prepared and make sure that you really become prepared when you leave the house. I think it can prevent a few of the tragic occurrences happening on the road.
Right, some very good tips on staying safe both indoors and outdoors. Meanwhile, the country's weather agency predicts that the cold weather will continue until Saturday, so definitely bundle up. And that was our keyword news for this Thursday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. It's Thursday, time to explore the Korean wave and the global appeal of Korean culture. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
After a 3-year wait, Netflix last month finally released the highly anticipated second season of its global sensation, Squid Game. The series revolves around a deadly survival competition where financially desperate individuals compete for a staggering prize of 45.6 billion Korean won, around $38 million. While the intense life or death games and themes like poverty, social inequality, and class anxiety continue to grip global audiences, Korean traditional children's games woven into the storyline have also sparked global interest.
Right, so today we're going to take a look into Korea's game culture based on the 2 seasons of Squid Game. As you may know, Squid Game 2 was recently released. So I want to ask our panelists, did you have the chance to watch the second season of Squid Game because it was widely anticipated? And if you did, what were some of the standout moments or games that drew your attention?
Yeah, it definitely drew a lot of people's attention, and I remember we even had the nomination before it was the Golden Globes nomination before it was released. So I know everybody was very, very excited about it.
Right.
What interests me about the Squid Game itself is the irony and sort of the juxtaposition of the most iconic and innocent childhood games with the deadly and sort of the survival game of the most complicated and disturbed adult figures who are literally fighting for life, death, and sort of money prize, right? So not to mention the diversified array of characters in season 2, but I also like that they provided a lot of backstories, and you will see some great actings from actors like Pyongyun Lee. But I don't want to spoil too much, but I just want to provide a fair warning to people who are chicken-hearted like myself. It can get a little bit violent, so if you're like me, definitely just be a little bit careful. But as you mentioned, Eugene, there are some very interesting elements that director Hwang added in season 2, so I hope the Western audience also find it appealing as well.
I think that the big contrast, very fun childhood games, but the theme is about poverty, class division.
Exactly.
I think that contrast is what really draws in viewers.
And even the players themselves, as you know, are the adults who sort of have lived this life where the innocence has been lost. So the fact that they're playing a game that was supposed to be enjoyed with a pure heart, with an ulterior motive, I think adds a different sort of twist and irony to the whole genre.
Definitely. Then I also want to ask the question to Bunju, because as far as I know, Bunju is the only one who saw and completed season 2 of Squid Game, so I think you have a lot to tell us.
Oh, I can spend the whole all 30 minutes today, but for time issue, I'll just make it short. I finished in a day, only had 7 episodes.
A day, wow.
Yeah, as a professional drama binge watcher, it was so easy for me to finish in a day. Anyways, a game that stood out for me was Korean Jackstones, Gonggi. Believe it or not, I'm pretty good at this game. I really liked it in my youth. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, there are 2 very most common types of gonggi. One's tambourine gonggi and one's ara gonggi. I like the tambourine one because the sound it makes when you like throw it high, it's so great. It just adds to another like whole new like sensory elements of the game. So
and it sounds like a tambourine, which is the reason why they're called tambourine gongis, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also, anyways, the game that stood out for me was so the Korean Jackstones and the moment. I don't want to spoil you guys too much, so the moment that really stood out for me was the very end of the series, end of the episodes, like episodes 6 to 7. So you better watch it and find out which moment was standing out for me.
Right. So when talking about Squid Game, we definitely cannot talk about the various types of Korean folk games, traditional games that were introduced. So from its first season in 2021, Squid Game brought Korea's traditional childhood games to the global audience, as we mentioned earlier. And season 2 also introduces new games with a deadly twist. And it's really interesting because the show's title, which is Squid Game itself, comes from an actual Korean game played on sandy playgrounds where players use a squid-shaped diagram, which is obviously the reason why it's called Squid Game. And we could see Squid Game being played in season 1 during the first and last episodes, and is played by the main characters Ki-hoon and Sang-hoon, who are childhood friends. So we're now going to focus a bit more on what types of Korean games were introduced in both seasons of Squid Game. So could you first start us off, Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many because even director Hwang himself said that he tried to introduce and add elements of these traditional games as much as possible so he can introduce them to the international audience. But let's start with the most iconic one of season 1. I think everybody knows Young-hee. Oh my God, it scares me. It scares me when the head rotates. It's supposed to be the most innocent and fun game for the Western audience. It is called 무궁화 꽃이 피었다, which means the 무궁화 flower, the national flower of Korea, has blossomed. And if you've already seen it, you know the rule. It is a twist of playing tags. So one player is it, and the other player has to sort of like freeze, stop, and move, and try to touch the tag and then get back. In season 2, for me, I think the one that a lot of Western audience found quite iconic is the gongginori, the Korean jackstone that Moonju mentioned.
Right.
So it is played with 5 stones, and it is a game that requires a lot of hand-eye coordination, strategy, and focus because you have to pick out the right stone. But what I found interesting was that this was the game that a lot of Western audience found the most confusing and complicated, even though it is so simple with just 5 little stones. So I hope that a lot of Western audience who are watching it really get to enjoy and see a diverse array of Korean traditional games.
Right. So for Cheska, the most iconic or memorable games were 무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다, which is also known as red light, green light for English-speaking viewers, and also the jackstone games, which are called gongginori here in Korea. Now to you, Moonju, could you tell us some more games that you found interesting in Squid Game?
Yeah, of course. In season 2, different games from season 1 are introduced. One of them is 비석치기. We call this flying stone in English, which is a game players aim to knock over an opponent's upright stone by flicking or throwing their own stones. And in fact, this origin has been unknown and has multiple explanations with its origins based on different Chinese characters. And 공기, 팽이치기, spinning top, and 제기차기, which we call also 제기차기 in English, also appears. And there was a 5-person, 6-leg game, which we are seeing right now, which players tied their legs together and moved as if they were one body. And another game involved pairing up based on the number called out by the host. And these are all Korean games that have been passed down since a very long time ago and still loved by many Koreans regardless of generations. And 제기차기 is in fact often played as school sports day recently in Korea. And also when Squid Game 1 released, games like Honeycomb Candy Challenge or like
달고나?
yeah, 달고나 and Tug of War, right?
Yeah.
It's gained popularity overseas, like a lot of popularity, and it's exciting to see which games will capture the global fans' eyes these days. And already many global fans are trying and sharing their experiences of 비석치기, flying stones. So it will be interesting to see what's coming next for us.
Right, because we have one final season, the third season left in Squid Game, which is expected to be launched this year. We'll see what kind of Korean games are introduced in the final season. Now back to Squid Game 1 and 2. For our viewers who may be curious, after watching the show, how diverse Korean games are,
Right.
then I would like to ask you, Cheska, are there similar games in other cultures, or are these games only unique to Korea?
That's an interesting question. So I didn't know until I did a bit of research, but Japan has something quite similar to apparently 무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다, which is another tag game. And gongginori, the jackstone, and the 제기차기 that Munju mentioned is also played in China and also in Europe. There is something similar to 팽이치기, which I am not unaware of, but I'm very interested actually to know if there are some similarities between the Korean games that are played versus the lot of different traditional games that are played in different countries. Because Eugene and I discussed, we were quite curious what drew the international audience to the Squid Game content itself, but perhaps these similarities of cultural games might have helped the audience to actually bridge the gap between different cultures. So I'm very interested to find out. Yeah.
And I think this will also give our viewers, international viewers, a chance to kind of explore the gaming cultures of their countries as well, because they might look into, are there any games similar to Red Flag, Red Light, Green Light, or 달고나 game, and then they might find something new about their gaming culture.
Exactly, I love that. I hope this kind of opens the door up to their innocent childhood times when they used to play these games. Yeah.
Right, and talking about other K content and Korean gaming culture even more, it's not just dramas like Squid Game that offer a look into Korea's game culture. Lately, K-pop songs have also become a medium for introducing Korean games to the global audience, which we talked about on Newston before, right, Woonju?
Yeah, exactly. Recently, Rosie's APT, the new song, became very popular, and the lyrics themselves are actually based on a Korean drinking game or 술 게임, which you play while drinking. So the part at the beginning of the song where it says 채영이가 좋아하는 랜덤 game start, right? This is what Korean university students chant, and it's actually in the music video right there we're seeing right now. And the apartment game involves several participants placing their hands together and then removing them one by one from the bottom. And with the person removing their hand, a specific number called by the leader having to drink a penalty shot. And additionally, the 북청사자 노름 appearing in BTS's Idol music video is a traditional folk music, folk performance held as a part of the seasonal costumes throughout Bukchung County and Hamgyong Province. And it's fascinating how traditional games and performances are woven into modern K-pop and K-contents.
Right, so we're seeing Korean games being introduced both in K-dramas, K-series, and also K-pop as well. And now to find more about Korea's game culture, we also asked our viewers which Korean games they know about and which ones they'd like to try. And let's hear what 3 of them had to say. Our first comment for this Thursday is by Roddy Russell Jr. 1174. I used to play red light, green light when I was a kid. 달고나 carving looks like a challenge and the candy itself looks delicious. It's already a prize. Whether you break it or not, you've already won. You're quite right.
Yes.
And then official spiritual success. I saw some K-pop stars play a dice game called gongginori during Chuseok and catch them on the back of their hand, kind of like playing jacks. It seems fun. Hazelnut soju and 아파트 sound like something fun too. Benny97 says, I want to play the APT game because it's a drinking game and fun to try with friends. That will define why so many people are keen on K-pop these days. So looking at our comments, we can definitely see that our viewers got to know more about these Korean games thanks to K-dramas and K-pop. Now to find out how popular Korean games have become thanks to K-content, we'll be joined by a millennial from Switzerland after this break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Today, we're joined by Matthew Ambrose, a millennial from Switzerland who's living in Korea. Welcome back to the show, Matthew.
Good morning.
Good morning. So Matthew, I want to ask you, how familiar are you with Korean games and where did you first hear about or encounter them?
All right, so when I was first living in South Korea, I lived in Daegu, and there was a special event that was supposed to expose foreigners to more traditions in South Korean culture. And I believe this was during the Seollnal period, and that's where a lot of the foreigners were gathered, and we were able to learn a little bit more about some of the traditional games. And so I believe we played gongginori at that time, and then got to know dakji as well, and I think, as you previously mentioned, gongi too.
So we're really curious, are there similar games in your country to the ones that we talked about in Squid Game or to your previous answers?
Well, I believe they might be similar a little bit to dakji, which is, trying to use one object on another object. And for that, we've got glogi lute, which is essentially you have a cowbell, and you need to have these balls and throw them at the cowbell to make sure that it makes a sound. But they also use something similar with horseshoes and with stands as well, which I believe is pretty common in many other countries too, not just Switzerland.
Have you tried any Korean games featured in K-dramas or K-pop songs? If so, which one was your favorite one?
So I did try, I actually totally forgot what the name was, but the one in the Squid Game, of course, with the sugar disc, and you have to carve out that shape. I did that.
Yeah.
Honestly, failed it every single time. I have yet to succeed. Still a work in progress.
I see. All right, Matthew Singh, thank you so much for your time today. Always lovely to have you on our show.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. See you next time.
Thank you. Right, so after our discussion today, for those interested in experiencing Korean games, whether they're traditional folk games introduced in Squid Game or drinking games like the APT 아파트 game, where can they go or how can they learn?
Drinking game can be played without alcohol, so I recommend definitely trying it out. And there are some great how-to videos online, so please check them out. But also, gongginori that Matthew mentioned is also a traditional board game.
It's like throwing sticks.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and we actually play in Lunar New Year's, which is coming up, so definitely check those out too.
Right, and as there are less than 3 weeks left until the Seollal holiday, definitely a great chance to play this gongginori game out.
Exactly, yep.
What about you, Munju?
One of the best ways to experience Korean games is by visiting a folk village. There will be a special events prepared for the upcoming Lunar New Year's Day, which we just mentioned, so it'll be a great time for you to experience many Korean traditional games, so why don't you visit there?
That you should definitely visit there. All right, hope our discussion today helped you learn more about Korean games and Korea's gaming culture. And that's all from NewsGen today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainha.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kang Munju.
Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.